Hello, hello, hello. I am not at the pearly gates. I am just in the city room. I've been left this far too late, but today is going to be a super, super short one because it's actually fairly straightforward. Today's reading was Job 38 and 39. Um, and I mean the long and short of it is God enters the chat. God, God makes an appearance and responds. And my oh my, does he respond? He opens with the coldest line. I'm just bringing up my Bible now so I can actually read it again, and not misparaphrase. And then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, "Who is this?" Let me read the King James is quite fantastic, but I like this. The NLT. Then the Lord answered Job from the whirlwind. Who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorant words? Brace yourself like a man, because I have some questions for you, and you must answer them. And I mean that really just takes me straight back to, C.S. Is it C.S. Lewis? I think it's C.S. Lewis. I think it's in Mere Christianity. In Mere Christianity, he draws the analogy of arguing with someone that gives you the ability to argue being akin to cutting off the branch on which you are sitting. You know, God's come in and he's straight on just talked about, like, he starts off with somewhat of a resume of his, you know, um, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Who determined its dimensions? Who supports its foundations? As the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy, who kept the sea inside its boundaries? He starts off laying the groundwork for what his argument would be, which is he is God. And who is this that will question God? Not to say don't. I don't think that's the point here, because he doesn't punish Job any further. But and I think this is again what's meant by the fear of the Lord. Fear isn't necessarily just quaking in my boots. Fear is, I know who this is. Fear in biblical terms is the same reason why an adult won't grab a rattlesnake by its tail, but a baby would. It isn't necessarily about one being more or less scared of the rattlesnake. It's more so about one knowing, being aware of, having a reverence for the venom of the rattlesnake than the other. Um, and so God's sort of laying the groundwork as to who is about to begin this argument. That said, and that's 38 and 39. God starts reeling off, his what he's done, um, that you would question him. Before I go on to the next point, I think we have the greatest delusion of grandeur. I think that's how you pronounce it. In thinking that because we exist and have brains, we can stand up to God. I think of Stephen Fry, who was, he was trying to make a point as to how cruel God is to allow for, an innocent child to suffer. And as you can imagine, Stephen Fry puts it super eloquently. But in as much as he's making a case for the suffering of humanity, what I think fails to register is you are an ant arguing with a god. And by comparison, that's not even probably as close as we can truly get. It's like a single-celled organism raising its voice to to us, you know. Um, I read a book and it said, if I am to destroy you, what business is that of yours? Speaking of the overwhelming difference, the overwhelming gap in power. But anyway, the point I was going to was there are certain bits here that I mentioned that I think are interesting. You know, what supports its foundations and who laid its cornerstone? As the morning stars, so this is Job 38:7. As the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy. I found that particular verse quite, it stood out to me. And the reason being, um, as the morning stars sang together, morning star we know is Lucifer. So actually, let me see if I can get down to some Greek words. So as the morning stars. Okay. So it's not actually one word, but rather it is two. Morning, which is boka, the same word used for morning in Genesis, and it's just the morning, the break of day. And then there's star, which is kobab, kokab, which seems to derive from a word that has a sense of blazing or fiery. Okay. I just find it interesting. Maybe it's just the mythology, really, of Morning Star somehow being related to Lucifer, but this might not be the case here. Okay, I'll put it out. It stood out to me, but I didn't dive deep into it. I think it's worth doing so. Either way, there are lines here and there that I think speak to something interesting. About God having created the earth, the manner in which He did so, and the audience that seems to have been present at the time, unless it's just a figure of speech. But it seems as though it might be more than just a figure of speech. But he talks about his power. He talks about the things he's done. He talks about the care he gives to creation. Who provides for the raven his food. When the young ones cry out unto God. Um, and he's painting a picture of just this powerful being that Job, in his pain and in his anguish, has been challenging. And God's met that challenge. Um, cool. So tomorrow's reading is 40 to 42, and we will hear a bit more from God as he starts to address Job's lament. Anyway, thank you so much. I know this one was super late, but thank you for watching. If and whenever you might, I hope that this encourages you to pick up a Bible, give it a quick read, and spend some time with God. All right, guys, I'm gonna go hit the sheets. Have a beautiful night and a beautiful day.